Hi, and welcome to Live in the Know. Today, we are lucky enough to have one of the top people at Beth Israel Deaconess Needham on to speak with us about the current ongoings at the local hospital.
Sam Sherman is with us today. She is the Chief Developments and External Relations Officer at Beth Israel Deaconess Needham. We thought it was important to hear directly from the hospital to gain a better understanding about how the hospitals are handling the pandemic and where things stand right now and in the future. Hopefully you will find this episode extraordinarily relevant and current. Our goal is to answer all of your questions and to help you live in the know.
Sam, we are so honored to have you on the show today and appreciate you taking the time. We know how busy you are and can only imagine how chaotic your business and life are right now. So thank you, seriously.
Thank you for having me. It's my honor to be here on your show and to thank you both personally for what you're doing for hospital workers at Beth Israel Deaconess Needham, but also in other community organizations that need the support. So thank you both.
Thank you.
So starting off, Sam, we just wanted to kind of start with some questions that we feel the viewers are really going to want to know. So starting with, how many patients is Beth Israel Needham treating right now for COVID? And when the patients are testing positive, are they coming into the hospital and staying there? What's the process like?
Sure. Well, the number of patients is always it's a moving target. It's very fluid in terms of who we have in the hospital. So the majority of our ICU are COVID positive patients. We do have a COVID specific dedicated unit where anyone who has tested positive for COVID and requires hospitalization is there, as well as any COVID suspect patients. So those patients are separate from your traditional patient who just needs to be hospitalized for other reasons. So usually if somebody comes into the emergency department and they're symptomatic with COVID, they'll be tested. And if they're sick enough to require hospitalization, they would be admitted to one of the COVID specific rooms. And then if they are symptomatic but not sick enough to be hospitalized, then they're discharged from the hospital, sent home with instructions, wear the mask, social distancing, and then they really await for their test results in terms of coming back positive or not for COVID. And at that point, they're really working with their primary care physician for next steps in treatment.
Now, have you seen in the last week or so, or just even the last few days, have things started to plateau, or the numbers still, kind of rising in a fast pace?
We did see the numbers rising last week. However, the past few days, we've started to see a very slow plateau, a little bit of a softening. I think that mirrors what you see happening with the state in terms of certainly the number of deaths in the state, a very slow decline as well as identified new cases. So we're seeing in Needham exactly what you're seeing statewide.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there's been a little bit of a plateau the past few days, and let's, pray that continues on for sure. Sam, you spoke about if someone tests positive, what the process is, but does everyone who comes in and feels they have the symptoms, anyone who thinks they may have it, is everyone being tested? How do you determine who gets tested?
Sure. So everyone who comes into the emergency room is really evaluated by a physician, a nurse, a team of caregivers. And if it's suspected to be COVID, they're tested. And again, depending on each person's medical history and situation, whether they're admitted or not, they would be sent to our COVID unit or sent home. If you're at home and not sure if you should come into the emergency department, if you're sort of sick enough or worried about coming into the emergency department, if you're symptomatic and feel like it could be COVID, your first call really should be to your primary care physician. And at that point, they'll work with you in terms of asking you a number of questions and determining whether to send you to, we have an outpatient drive-by testing unit set up at the hospital, or to the emergency department. So if you're symptomatic and you're working with your primary care physician, they might say, you know what, I really want you to go in and get a test. And at Beth Israel Deaconess in Needham, you literally drive up to our main parking lot, you pull your car around, and there are caregivers there, a couple of nurses who come to your car. fully in their protective equipment, and they'll do a swab, and then you drive off. So you never even have to get out of your car. And that's for people at this point who are symptomatic. We hope to get to a point where we can do more testing more broadly of asymptomatic people. But right now, with the shortage of supplies and swabs and testing, we're really focusing on people who are showing COVID.
And I saw earlier, or I heard a few weeks ago, when they started doing testing in the state, that you needed basically a doctor's note saying you were symptomatic. Is that still required?
That is still required, yes. So for all Beth Israel Deaconess Needham primary care physicians, they know how to access the drive-through testing site. And so they will have somebody call you, they'll give you a time, and it's really pretty easy. You can get in and out pretty quickly, and then they'll let you know within a day or two what your results are. And at that point, your primary care physician is really guiding you through the COVID illness, unless you get to a point where you become so ill that you require a trip to the emergency department or possibly hospitalization.
So Sam, how are the doctors, nurses, and hospital staff doing? Are they okay? Are many of them contracting the COVID virus? How has Beth Israel been handling it? And is the doctor and nurse and hospital community doing okay?
Yeah. So I have to tell you, they are the bravest group of people I've seen. Morale right now it's okay. I think that they've seen a lot of really sick patients, and they go to work like we do, not like we do. They go to work worried about their families, about getting sick themselves, bringing that home to their families. Many of them also are dealing with some of the financial stress that has come with COVID. So they are carrying all the worries that we have, but they are also showing up and caring for patients in the most compassionate and skilled way. And so I just think that they're an incredible group of people who are on the front lines of all of this. There have been a number of employees who have tested positive for COVID. We really try to trace where people maybe were exposed, and at this point, it can't be definitive, but it looks like probably 2/3 of our employees who have been diagnosed with COVID are getting that outside of the hospital. Either they have a spouse or a child or a family member who was exposed or has it. And so we have a number of people who have been diagnosed. We are constantly monitoring on a daily basis symptoms for employees. So anyone working at the hospital every day is filling out a form, sort of saying, how are you feeling? Do you have a sore throat? Are you feeling sick? And we're proactively testing anyone who feels any of the symptoms of COVID. And then oftentimes we're quarantining employees if they come in and they're sort of what we call COVID suspect, where they've been tested, but we're not sure if they have it. They're put on quarantine so that they don't get anyone sick while we're trying to figure out if they have it or not. So, but overall they're good. They're just they're sort of rising to the challenge in a really, really great way.
Well, I think that the general public is certainly aware, or at least greatly appreciative, seeing these staff members you're speaking of rise to the occasions. Which, Boston is another question. Boston in general has always been known, and the whole greater Boston region, for having tremendous hospitals. Are the different hospitals collaborating together more so than typically right now?
I would say yes. I'd say that's definitely true. I think that this is a time of collaboration and innovation and teamwork like we've never seen before. The Mass Hospital Association has a call 2 times a week with hospital leaders across the state to talk about issues that are affecting all of us. We've all been in this struggle for weeks now, and so how we're dealing with, shortages in the early stages on personal protective equipment and, beds and ventilators and so forth, that is a conversation that happens on those calls with leaders across the state. Within our own hospital, Beth Israel Deaconess Needham is part of the Beth Israel Lahey Health System. And so we have a call every day. We have an incident command center, And we talk across all hospitals every day to talk about all of those issues and how we can support one another, move equipment if we need to move equipment, open up beds if we need to open up beds. Some of the hospitals within our organization, their ICU beds are at 130%. So they're full. And, we're always monitoring who has beds, who has ICU capacity, who has ventilators, and really moving things around to make sure that everybody has what they need. And when you think about an ICU being at 130%, right, that's sort of more than what you could handle. I think that part of the innovation and teamwork and collaboration that's come out of this is every hospital has had to do things that maybe we didn't expect to do. So for instance, when BID Needham, we closed our outpatient elective surgeries like the rest of the state did. We then took our ORs, our operating rooms, and we opened up additional ICU beds. So if we ever get to the point where our ICU is at 100% and we get a surge of people coming in, we have additional beds in our operating rooms that are ready to go. And so we've done that in Needham, but that's happened across the board at all of the BI Lahey hospital organizations. So a lot of collaboration, a lot of coordination, and really innovation.
So from doing the podcast that we've been doing over the past month, the one thing that we've seen with everything going on with COVID-19 is the collaborations between all different industries and businesses that have come about. I'm thrilled to hear that the hospitals are collaborating. Not surprised. We're in Boston, where the hospitals are the best of the best. So another question we have for you is, the new normal for, us outside the hospitals is to wear masks and social distancing and all of that. Do you foresee this going on for the next 6 months, that this is going to be our new normal?
I do. I really feel like the social distancing, we're seeing that that has worked. It's really helped in terms of, flattening the curve. And really, that was so important to do, because if we hadn't been able to flatten that curve, that's, if you have that spike that we avoided and hopefully have avoided, that's the point at which the hospitals become overloaded. And so I do think that for the next, 6 months or so, there will be continued social distancing, masks. We need to give science a minute to catch up to the disease, to the virus. And so there are people actively working on a vaccine. I've heard that could be a year out, which is really also very, very quickly in terms of thinking where we were a couple months ago. But I do think the social distancing, the masks, will be a new normal for a little while.
So speaking of a new normal, in quotes, with the masks and the social distancing, obviously schools were just canceled for the rest of the year, which I don't think was a huge surprise to many of us. And we realize you don't have a crystal ball, but you're clearly more educated on all of this than we are. Do you have any realistic hopes or predictions of when some semblance of normalcy will come back, whether that's you can go to a restaurant, but you have to wear a mask, or I don't know, any input you have?
Yeah, I think that I think there will be a new normal, right? So I think people's comfort level and how safe they feel going back to the lifestyle that we had, that we considered normal before, will be the biggest factor. I think we'll, listen to our public health officials about when and how we roll out and start to reopen businesses and the economy. And I do think it has to be very, very calculated and thought through. But I would imagine that we would start to see, restaurants having, half the occupancy they previously did, and tables further apart, and, possibly masks with, servers or providers. I think that we'll see a lot of industries that are just reinvented and taking into account our sort of psychological piece of this, our comfort level. And then I do think a vaccine will be created. And when there is a vaccine, I think that will change things and probably get back to a little bit of what we had before. I don't know that it will ever go back completely, though.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we all hear what you're saying, and I think everyone hopes to get back to normal soon, but I think everyone knows that there's going to be a new normal.
There's going to be a new normal.
So we've heard and we've seen that the Boston Globe has been, delivering meals to you on a daily basis, which is so incredible. We know that there's a really, detailed process that, you have to go through with delivering meals to the BI. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. First of all, we've been so grateful to everyone who reached out to us to provide support. And I think in that first week, we had so many people who wanted to drop off meals to the staff, and they were really grateful for them. I think it's part of the day that makes them smile. So we were really proud to partner with the Boston Globe. We're the pilot site for a program that they launched now statewide. But the president of the Boston Globe and I had a conversation about an idea they had to provide 3 meals a day, 7 days a week to our staff through the pandemic, throughout the course of the pandemic. And so, of course, we were really excited about the opportunity. And their idea was twofold, similar to what you guys are doing, and that let's invest in local businesses and have them prepare food for hospital workers. It's sort of a win-win, right? Because it's like these local restaurants who need the support in the business are getting sort of this, lifeline of work to do and the ability to sort of reinvent themselves. And then our frontline workers are benefiting from this delicious food and meals prepared. We went back and forth on this a lot at the hospital because we always talk about our staff as the front line on this pandemic, but really we view them as the last line. They're sort of the last line of defense between the pandemic and everybody else. And so safety is paramount for us. It is for everybody, but we really thought through how can we make sure that meals are coming in that are the right temperature and that take out all the risk of food delivery in this process to keep everyone as safe as possible, whether it's the restaurant owners, the delivery people, the employees, and just eliminate risk of exposure or any other risk related to food delivery. And so the Boston Globe had a project manager. They brought on a chef, Chef Thomas, to oversee the program. And we developed some really I would say very strict guidelines with the Department of Public Health, our infection control team, the Boston Globe, to provide food in a way that we felt would be great for the local businesses, good for the hospital, and eliminate all of the risk in it. So it's as controlled as it can be. The Boston Globe organizes all of the logistics with the individual restaurants. There is a very strict guideline in terms of logs that we keep for the Department of Public Health around food temperature and around delivery vehicles and containers. So it was very complicated to get food to us initially, but really it's because we wanted to make sure that it was done so in the safest possible way. And I'm really proud of what we came up with. And the Globe now actually is supporting other BILH hospitals, and they had an ad in the Globe on Monday. They're opening it up to any hospitals and restaurants statewide who are interested, and that's part of the innovation I was talking about. We're really happy to be the pilot site for that program, and it's been really well received both by our staff, but also the local restaurants who are participating in that. So Stacy's Juice Bar, French Press, Biga, Sweet Basil, they're all really happy to be part of it, and it just creates a nice sense of community.
That's awesome. And I got to tell you, it never would have crossed my mind to literally be taking the temperature of the food.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. So obviously outside of this, there's many people who are coming up with creative ways to give back and do something for the medical professionals and the hospital staff. How's the local community supported Beth Israel over the past month or so? And also, what's the best and or easiest way someone can help?
I feel like I need a full hour to tell you how the local community is supporting us. It's really been unbelievable. So I have to congratulate you and thank you. I think you guys have raised $25,000 in your fund, which is really unbelievable. Um, it's people like yourselves who have started, GoFundMe pages that have really taken off. I can tell you that the gifts that we receive from your fund, we get the gift cards to local restaurants. It's very similar to the Globe program, but what we do when you give us the gift cards is we package that and we'll give our nurse manager 100 gift cards to bring to the emergency department. And she'll walk in and she will literally hand every single person in the emergency department who's working an envelope, everybody from environmental services to registration staff, nurses, physicians, and she'll just say, thank you, this is from your community. And we've seen that's sometimes the only time they get to smile during their shift, and it's like they feel like, oh, someone thought about us and we're in this together. And I've got so many nice notes from nurses who wrote back and said, I got my gift card and I picked up a pizza at Sweet Tomatoes on my way home and it made my kids happy and that made me happy. And so we're so grateful for you for doing that. So that's one way that people are helping. There's another program similar called One Needham, and they're providing gift cards as well for local restaurants. And we love that because we really do care about all these owners of our local restaurants. They're part of our family and our community, and we want them to have the support. And it allows us just to make sure that we have enough gift cards coming in that we can go to the ICU and we can go to our COVID inpatient floor and we can go to the emergency department. And so that's been incredibly helpful. The James did a virtual happy hour and they raised $7,000 in one night.
Wow.
They had
Amazing.
and so creative. And again, it's sort of that win-win. They're bringing together the community, but also really supporting the frontline staff at BID Needham, which is really, really great. We've had Fairweather Printing did Needham sweatshirts. I don't know if you saw those. But
Both of my kids and my wife are wearing theirs right now. They want me to put one on right when we finish with this.
I almost wore mine for this interview.
Same.
So,
my kids wanted me to.
Yeah. Well, my son, who I think just walked in, was wearing his. But that brought in $3,500 for the hospital. Proud Mary, they're a great store, and she has organized an effort where you can go online to her store and buy a soap and lotion set to give to somebody at the hospital. And then also $4 from every set is a contribution. So that's been really great. And then we've also had, we had one of our nurses. The thing that's amazing is generosity is just everywhere. There's this movement of kindness. Like, yes, there's this horrible pandemic that's happening, but from where I sit, I see the best of everybody. And there's this movement of kindness and generosity that is really overwhelming. And it's coming from our community to our employees, our physicians, our staff, and it's also among our staff. We had a nurse reach out to me probably a few weeks ago, and she said, I'm just really worried about the spread of COVID. And I want to make sure that every single employee has a pair of shoes that they can wear in the hospital and a pair of shoes that they wear at home. And she said, I'm just worried that people are wearing the same shoes, in the hospital and home and bring any risk or exposure into their home. And so I said, okay, well, give me a little bit of time and let's see what we can do. And we reached out to New Balance and just said, can you help us with this? And so New Balance is donating 300 pairs of shoes to all the employees at BID Needham. So it's just amazing. This is a nurse worried about her colleagues, and then a company like New Balance coming and helping us fulfill that. So those are just some of the really nice things that have happened. On top of that, we established our Healthcare Heroes Fund. And so I would say if you're looking for a really easy way to support the hospital and a very impactful way to support the hospital, contributing to the Healthcare Heroes Fund would be really amazing and such a help to all of us. You can do that on our website. It's www.bidneedham.org. To date, we've raised $150,000 in the fund. Everything in that fund will go back to our employees. So we last week rolled out our guidelines for the fund and an application. So any employee who is having any kind of hardship right now around needing grocery cards or food insecurity or needing transportation or childcare, they can apply to this Healthcare Heroes Fund and then receive a grant up to $500 a month to help with their expenses. So our staff, they're essential employees. They show up, they want to be there. Some of them are incurring extra expenses to do that. With childcare and daycares being closed, I think there's an extra cost to that. And so we want to help alleviate any of the stress that they're feeling to be there. Similar to a lot of us, many of them are in family situations where either a spouse or a parent has lost their job and now they're the sole income provider. And so in the first week, we received over 40 applications from nurses, from housekeepers, from secretaries, all who are saying, like, this is what's happening to me at home. And it's kind of heartbreaking and it's kind of unbelievable to see what they're carrying in terms of their personal stress, and then coming to the hospital, being as brave as they are and providing the care in such a compassionate way as they are. So it's really inspiring. And as you can tell, I'm a big believer in our staff and the Healthcare Heroes Fund, but that is really making a difference for our staff. So any contribution to that is really greatly appreciated and is going directly to people at the hospital.
Sam, you just said that so beautifully. And, it truly, I'm like an emotional person. So like my eyes started filling up, but, we're so appreciative of what everyone at the hospital is doing. And I can only imagine the balance of trying to balance personal and what they're dealing with at the hospital must be extraordinarily hard and difficult right now. So I think that fund is incredible. What you said about, it's a movement of kindness. You really kind of took the words out of my mouth. Like that, I mean, that's what we're seeing all over, is the kindness that's coming out from people is just extraordinary. So
it's extraordinary. And I'm also emotional and I care so much for my colleagues and my friends. And when I see them doing what they're doing, it means so much to me to have your support. And I truly know that when they hear about the support to the fund, when they get the gift cards, it does make them smile and it does help. And they want to help each other. They're applying for these grants, but at the bottom it will say, but if somebody else needs it more than me, give it to somebody else. And I think that sort of sums up who they are. So, but I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to talk about it and for all of your contributions.
Well, I want to hop on this emotional train here because I'm lucky. I have bad lighting today, and thank goodness, because I was actually misting up. And I'm thinking in my head while you're talking, I'm like, all right, you don't need to mist up on this right now. But it's touching and it's emotional. And some of the pictures that Kelly sent us of the staff just receiving the gift cards was amazing. And it was really, Traci and I looked at it, and I think it moved both of us and a lot of people who have helped contribute. And it's amazing. People are really doing amazing things. So it was very well said. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel like I'll never be able to thank everyone enough.
You don't need to. We need to thank you.
That's right. That's absolutely correct.
And your staff.
Yeah.
So Jared, you did kind of lead in for our next question when you started talking about photographs, because we recently had Cara Sulia, who's the co-founder of Front Steps Project, on LiveInTheKnow. And she took a picture at the Beth Israel Hospital in Needham, with all the doctors standing 6 feet apart from each other. And it was just so impactful. And it really has made its way across the country. How has that, how have people talked about it at the hospital, and how has it made people feel seeing that, go from news source to news source?
Mm-hmm. First of all, Cara and that project is really unbelievable. And I had my family photo taken with her probably in the first week, and I knew it was one of those ideas that would just be so impactful. So I'm so grateful to her, because she brought the community together in such an ingenious way and raised so much money for the Needham Community Council, which is a really important organization in our town. So that picture, we're so proud of that picture. And in so many ways, it sort of signifies, yes, it's BID Needham, and we're proud of our caregivers in our hospital. And for us, it sort of symbolizes like, we're here for you. We're ready. We've been preparing for this. And, we got you when you want to walk in. And so we're proud of that. We're proud of our workers who, practicing their social distancing and being a leader and getting that message out there. But really, I also think that it sort of spread so quickly because it does represent every community hospital, every organization, every hospital across the country who feels like that, who's like, yeah, this is what we do. This is why we do what we do. And we're here and we got you. So we're so grateful that Kara took the time to come and take that photo. And if you could have seen the behind the scenes, we were sort of like, how can we get everybody out there it was like a 3-minute shot, and so it just worked out. And we're so grateful that she included us as part of it. And we're just so proud of the photo, of the people in it, of the hospital, and everything that it represents. Yeah.
It's an amazing picture, and Kara is awesome. And she did tell us that might be her favorite picture that they've taken throughout this whole thing. So just lastly, for me at least, we talked at the very beginning about the kind of chaos that you're going through, specifically at work. I'm sure somewhat at home too, with your teenagers. But what are some ways that you've been able to calm yourself or turn down the stress level recently, or is it constant?
Well, it's pretty constant, but I have a few tricks. I've been so I love how some of these small businesses have reinvented themselves. So I'm a big Orange Theory person, Orange Theory in Wellesley. And so they started doing their classes on Facebook Live. And so sometimes I'll tap into one of their classes, and HYP and Needham, they're doing their classes online. So every day I try to find one of those classes with like my people and my friends and try to stretch or get a little bit of exercise, do something like that. Lots of Zoom happy hours happening at the end of the day. But really just trying to stay connected to community as much as possible. And, they're very long hours, but as I said, I really feel like I see the best in people. And so it's this stress and urgency to sort of help everyone, at the hospital who's working and caring for patients, but it's a good stress and it's a good kind of connection, talking with people that I never would have met if we weren't in the situation that we're in now. So yeah, so I think just keeping my connections and doing some yoga.
Yes, no, exercise is definitely good, and taking walks, and I've also been doing the Zoom calls with friends, and it's been really nice. I've actually caught up with some people that I haven't spoken to in years, so it's been a really nice way to reconnect.
Isn't that interesting? I'm also finding that while we're apart, we're almost more connected than ever before. Yeah, I found the same thing. If anyone has any tips on how to deal with teenage girls during this, maybe people can write in and give you some ideas.
Well,
That could be a whole nother thing.
So I hear you. I got 2 teenage boys and then a little one. So yes, we could use some guidance as well.
I have the 2 teenage girls and then a 9-year-old son. So yeah.
I have the flip of you. So maybe we should just at some point join them together on Zoom and they can figure it out.
We should.
If you really want, you could have your teenagers just Zoom babysit my kids, and that way it'll make my life a whole lot easier.
They could do like an art class or something.
Perfect. Well, Sam, I got to say, it's really, everything that you're telling us is so important, and everything you're doing is so amazing. And what your staff has been doing is really just so inspirational. And listening to everything you're saying, I can tell that you're a glass half full person,
Yeah.
which I try to think of myself as also. And it's really, really, really amazing to hear that and to hear everything going on. And we just want to say from us, and I know for so many people, thank you, not just for being on today, but for everything that the Beth Israel Deaconess in Needham is doing, and the hospital staffs around the country and the world, amazingly. But thank you for everything.
Yes, no, you're welcome. And thank you again for having me here and for allowing me to provide some smiles to people in the hospital. I think that that's more important than you'll ever know. So,
Well, stay safe and stay healthy and keep doing what you're doing. And hopefully we can, be at the end of this tunnel soon.
I hope so. You too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We will be in touch. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Bye.